Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of India Habitat Center and Professor Benoy K Behl. Today's talk is the 49th in his monthly series, Glimpses of Culture. Over the past 4 decades, art historian, filmmaker, and photographer Benoy K Behl has repeatedly traveled to all corners of India and through the many countries of Asia to document art and cultural heritage. In fact, the Limca Book of Records, for its last 20 years, used to give him the record for being the most traveled art historian every year. The breadth of his vast coverage has given a new perspective to the understanding of Indian cultural history. Phenomena which sometimes may have appeared isolated or comparatively unexplained are often better understood and seen in their true cultural context through his broad ranging vision and documentation. Often he may take us to a well known site, but in our journey with him, we see it against a broad backdrop. The film which he shares with us today, 5,000 Years of Sculpture Part 1, is a case in point. With Professor Behl, it is a breathtaking journey across thousands of kilometers east to west and north to south, journeying through a few thousand years of art. What emerges finally is a remarkable unifying vision which inspired and created this vast treasure of art. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Benoy K Behl will speak to us about the film. I thank you for your attention and hand the floor over to Professor Behl now.
Thank you very much, Sujata Chatterji. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A great pleasure to be here with you again. My many thanks to the India Habitat Center and Ms. Renu Oberoi for organizing these marvelous screenings, these events to share the cultural heritage of India and Asia with all of you. My grateful thanks to Doordarshan for having sponsored so many of my documentary films, deeply researched works over so many years. Uh, in a world which is so commercially driven, Doordarshan lived up to its uh, ideals as a public broadcaster so well by sponsoring this work, which was purely cultural and deeply researched and without fear of it not getting enough TRPs, and made it possible to document the vast art of India across so many lands. Great pleasure to share so many of these films with all of you. Now, the art and monuments of the ancient period in India are a uh, unique chapter in the cultural history of the world. Just imagine a period of time of well over 1,000 years when thousands and thousands of monuments were being built. Hundreds of thousands of works of art were being created. In fact, every hilltop over this vast country, from east to west and north to south, was covered with a monument to the divine. During the time when all all houses even of kings, were made only of ephemeral materials because they were only passing personalities. It is monuments to the divine, to the spirit within us, which were made of stone. And everywhere there were these numberless monuments, stupas, temples, all across the so very many hills and valleys of this vast subcontinent. And most importantly, and this is truly something to be well understood and something which should be made better and better known, all this art, all these monuments were not made by kings. They were made by the people, the common people of this land. There are these thousands of inscriptions which survive across the length and breadth of this country, in all the monuments which survive of the ancient period. And these inscriptions show, uh, for instance, an inscription would say, I am a fisherman and I am patronizing the making of this pillar of this stupa railing. I am a housewife and I am patronizing this sculpture in a temple. I am a tailor and I am patronizing this part of a stupa, etc. It is quite amazing to see that this entire heritage, all the ancient monuments that you see across this vast land, were all actually sponsored by the people right up to about the 7th century, after which kings began to directly, for the first time, uh, start patronizing temples in the country. So this is a marvelous chapter of the history of the world. Look at the equitable distribution of culture. Uh, Even the most common people have surplus wealth to be able to patronize an edifice, to be able to patronize art. And best of all, it is women as much as men who have this ability to be able to, ability and money to be able to patronize this art. It's a marvelous period of time which should indeed be made much better known to all of us in this country and to the world. It is an important chapter in the history of the world. And look at the art. The art has a stated purpose right from the earliest times. The purpose of the art is to help us on our path towards knowledge, towards our path, towards salvation. So there is a reason for the art, a deeply important reason. It is intrinsically tied up with the philosophy of the land. So from the earliest times, you see the stupas and the lingas. Lingas means the symbol, the mark of the formless eternal, before which we come so that we will not be distracted when we sit down to meditate. There are no forms of the world before us, there is only the shapeless form of the stupa or the linga. And here we will meditate. And on the way here, we have passed the numberless forms of the world who are made on the temple walls, the outer temple walls, and on the railings and toranas or gateways of the stupas. We see these countless forms of the world, and we see them in the context of the fact that all this is what we will leave behind as we enter through the doors and proceed to meditate, to try to gain knowledge of the Nirgun, the Arupa, the formless, that which is without qualities of the world as we perceive them. And it's so marvelous to see that this great philosophic heritage is a heritage of the people. It is not just some deeply learned people who understand this philosophy or discuss this philosophy, but it is a heritage of the people. So you have this long period of time, the ancient period in India, when there is this absolutely wonderful creation of art by the people, for the people, and a great understanding which is shared of the philosophic heritage which is shared in the art. it is an immense pleasure for me to share this with all of you. And I would request Sunil to please run the film now. I'll be happy to answer your questions after the screening. Thank you so much.
The history of Indian sculpture is the story of one of the oldest cultures of the world, which continues till today. 5,000 years ago, there was a vast civilization established in the river valleys of North India. The first sites found were in the basin of the Indus River. All art found is made on a small scale and is very sophisticated. Even within the small space of the seals, animals are depicted in a highly naturalistic manner. Unlike other cultures, in the thousands of art objects found here, there are no images of warfare or prisoners. One of the most fascinating seals found is that with a depiction of a man in a posture very similar to yoga, which is an essential aspect of the spiritual life of India till today. In the beginning of the first millennium BC, the Upanishads were composed in the Indian subcontinent. These were based upon continuing philosophic traditions of the land. The ideas expressed here are basic to all Indic philosophies. Indian art is filled with the Upanishadic vision of the unity of all of creation. In this view, the material world around us is seen to be an illusion based upon our perceptions. Our attachment to the illusory world leads to pain. The high purpose in life and of art is to lift the veils of this illusion and to look beyond. In the 3rd century BC, Emperor Ashoka erected several large pillars with capitals and inscribed his edicts upon rocks. In keeping with ancient traditions, the inscriptions show that the emperor was preoccupied with dharma, one's duty to the whole of existence. The chakra is the Upanishadic symbol of the order of the universe. It is used often in Buddhist and Jaina art. The 4 lions placed back to back indicate the spread of dharma. These are formal and stylized. Other examples, like this bull capital, are carved in a naturalistic manner. One of the best-known sculptures of Maurya times is that of a female chauri, or whisk-bearer, that was found at Didarganj in present-day Patna. The Shungas, who ruled in the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, worshipped Hindu deities and were also benevolent to the Buddhist Sangha. Around 100 BC, a great Buddhist stupa was made at Bharhut in present-day Madhya Pradesh. A railing or vedika and a gateway or torana were made around it. Unlike the imperial art of the Mauryas, inscriptions here show that the reliefs and figures were donated by lay people, monks and nuns. Images of yakshas and yakshis represent the protection of nature and its great fertility, which ensures the continuance of life. The Hindu deity of prosperity and abundance, Lakshmi, is also made on the Vedika. The Vedika reliefs depict many scenes from the life of the Buddha and from his previous lives. The Buddha himself is never made in this early Buddhist art. Instead, there are symbols which indicate his presence. In early Indian art, the focus was not on individuals, and there were no portraits, even of kings who were patrons. In fact, in the Chitra Sutra, the ancient Indian treatise on art, it is the eternal themes and not personalities which are the fitting subject of art. The great stupa at Sanchi was originally made in the 3rd century BC. Later, under the Satavahanas, who worshipped Hindu deities themselves, 4 gloriously carved stone gates or toranas 34 feet high were added. They were completed in the 1st century AD. The veneration of nature's fertility and abundance, as seen at Bharhut, continues here. 24 auspicious women are made as bracket figures on the gateways. Reliefs made on the gateways reflect the lives of the towns and villages at that time. Over 1,000 years, from the 2nd century BC onwards, more than 1,200 caves were excavated out of the mountains of the Western Ghats. The first phase of prolific excavation was from the 2nd century BC till the 3rd century AD, under the rule of the Satavahanas and the Kshatrapas. Though these kings revered Hindu deities, they patronized all religious establishments. Individual sculptures and pillars were donated by merchants, bankers, gardeners, farmers, fishermen, housewives and others, including Greek devotees. This Chatterji or prayer hall was made at Bhaja in Pune district in the 2nd century BC. For Buddhists and Jainas, the stupa is a symbol of the passage from the world of illusion to that of eternal bliss. A horseshoe-shaped arch dominates the facade of the cave. The shape was first made in imitation of wooden architecture in the Barabar caves of the Ajivikas. On a high hill opposite the range which has the caves of Bhaja, a grand Chatterji and viharas were created in the 1st to 2nd centuries AD at Karle. The facade has on it 6 couples larger than life and filled with robust vitality. These are the Yakshas and Yakshis. Their closeness to each other in natural affection symbolizes the completeness and the harmony of the natural order. In the meantime, in the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, Jaina rock-cut caves and stupas were being made in many parts of India. These show the close similarity of art as well as that of the symbols of the Buddhist and Jaina faiths. The Kushanas ruled from the 1st to the 3rd centuries AD. They came from southern China. In early Indian art, there were no portraits of kings or other ephemeral personalities. The Kushanas brought a different outlook with them and built royal shrines with images of themselves. The making of the images of kings did not last beyond the rule of the Kushanas. However, in this period, there was a new focus on the depiction of personalities in art. Images of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Jaina Tirthankaras, and Hindu deities were created in the Mathura region. These followed the earlier models of the Yakshas and Nagas. The form in which the Buddha was presented was that of an enlightened being, one out of many, with 32 attributes that identified him as such. The summer capital of the Kushanas was at Peshawar, in the Gandhara region. Concepts of Indian philosophy, which placed emphasis on the renunciation of worldly desires, were new to many here. The sculptures of this region show influences of Mediterranean and Persian styles. Instead of the spiritual idealized forms of the Indic mainstream tradition, these attempt to present the appearance and expressions of people in the world. In early Buddhism, the focus was within oneself, on the potential for enlightenment, which is in each of us. In the Gandhara region, the attention began to go more towards a heroic personality of a Buddha and other Buddhas as distinct individuals. These could be prayed to for their help. The early Buddhist site of Amravati is on the bank of the river Krishna in the present-day state of Andhra Pradesh. In the 2nd century AD, under the Satavahanas, the sculptural reliefs of the magnificent stupa reached their culminating phase. A world of Buddhist narratives was created. The Satvahana rulers were devoted to Hindu deities and gave grants to the Buddhist Sangha. However, as in central and western India, the art was patronized by the people. In 320 AD, Chandragupta I founded the Gupta Empire in North India. He ushered in an age in which all aspects of culture flowered. In the 1st century, deities in human form had been created in Indian art to provide a support to minds not prepared to comprehend the formless abstract. The human form had to be created, which rose above itself. It was an embodiment of that which was eternal, undisturbed by turmoil and cravings. Meditating upon such a form, devotees awakened the best within themselves. Fine sculptures from Sarnath in Uttar Pradesh show the form that was created to express the spiritual state of the Buddha. Behind lowered eyelids, the look is within. It is around this time that the Chitra Sutra, the oldest known treatise on art, was penned, out of traditions which were ongoing. Canons guided the artist. Individual achievement and works of rare beauty were born out of the immediate experience of the artist of the visualized reality itself. In the first quarter of the 5th century, 20 rock-cut caves were carved out of the hill at Udaygiri, not very far from Sanchi. These are the earliest surviving Hindu temples. The most magnificent representation here is of the Nara-Varaha Avtara of Vishnu. At Deogarh, near Jhansi in Uttar Pradesh, stands a temple to Vishnu dated to about 500 AD. On three sides of the temple are niches which depict different avtaras of Vishnu. The magnificent Buddhist site of Ajanta is 100 kilometers from Aurangabad. Many caves had been excavated here around the 2nd century BC. In the mid-5th century, under the rule of the Hindu Vakataka kings, it saw renewed activity. The facades of early Chaityagrihas presented a grand simplicity. The second phase of Ajanta brings us a changed world. The many figures made now display a great humanity. In Cave 26, a profoundly moving scene is that of the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha, when he finally achieves release from the mortal world. This is one of the grandest, yet most sensitive depictions in all of Buddhist art. At the site of Kanheri, within present-day Mumbai, were made great Buddhas over 22 feet high in the 5th century. This is the beginning of the tradition of Brihad or colossal Buddhas, which spread near and far. Cave 90 of the early 6th century has the earliest representation of the mandala, which represents a graded path towards enlightenment. The most wondrous Hindu excavation of the 6th century is on Gharapuri Island in Mumbai harbour. The island is popularly known as Elephanta. On the south wall of the cave is made a profoundly moving representation of Lord Shiva. The image emerges from a dark void as a vision of the unmanifest eternal. The red sandstone cliffs of Badami in Karnataka offered a spectacular setting for the excavation of 4 caves. In Cave 1 of the mid-5th century is a magnificent depiction of the Nataraja, Shiva in the cosmic dance. It is in the Virupaksha temple of the 8th century at Pattadakkal that we encounter the full glory of art under the early Chalukyas. This vitality and movement is seen in 8th century art across many parts of India, including Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan and Orissa. On the shores of Tamil Nadu is Mamallapuram, a marvelous town of temples carved out of the rock. Here, a granite hill face, almost 100 feet by 50 feet, has been transformed into a world of divine and earthly beings. This giant relief is of the 7th century. About 100 figures of animals, men, women, and divine beings are made approximately life-sized and with great sensitivity and naturalism. One of the most magnificent depictions in Mamallapuram is that of Mahishasur made in a 7th century cave. Durga, a feminine aspect of Shiva, battles the demon buffalo or Mahisha, who represents the evil of ignorance. The Adi-Varaha cave is notable for having the portraits of King Narasimhavarman and his son with their wives. After the period of the Kushanas, these are the earliest surviving portraits of Indian kings. In the 8th century, King Narasimhavarman II, Rajasimha, made the structural shore temple at Mamallapuram and the Kailashanatha temple at Kanchipuram. The deity in the Kailashanatha temple, and by implication the temple itself, was named Rajasimha Pallaveshwara, or the Lord of Rajasimha Pallava. Besides the Shivalinga, the shrines of the temple have the image of the Soma Skanda. This shows Shiva with Parvati as Uma and their son Skanda or Kartikeya. The Lord and his spouse are presented as universal parents. A parallel is drawn between the divine family and that of the king. Unlike the art of ancient India, now the grandeur of the king is being expressed through the art. In the 8th century, a vast section of a rocky hillock at Kalugumalai was carved into an unfinished Shiva temple. The many figures carved on the tiers of the roof are graceful and in naturalistic poses. The journey of Indian art has brought us to a point where the human form is used to convey ideas which transcend our mortal existence. The subject of the art is the depiction of the essence and not only the optical reality of the world. As stated in the ancient treatise, the Chitra Sutra, the depiction of harmony and beauty has a transforming influence upon the viewer. When we respond to beauty, for that moment, we come out of ourselves, our worldly cares and concerns are left behind. In that moment, we are absorbed in the grace which is everywhere in creation.
Thank you very much, Sunil, for another excellent screening. And thank you very much, Sujata. It is because of you that I'm able to do all that I do, and I always feel so grateful to you. India Habitat Center for the last uh, 25 years has joined me on this journey of sharing this great art, and I remain most grateful to India Habitat Center. And Doordarshan has played an exemplary role over these last 23 years. There has been the screening of at least one film of mine every day, whether it is on the national channel or whether it is consistently on DD Bharati. And it is so gratifying to get messages from school teachers from remote parts of the country to say that they find these films very useful for their students. I'm so glad, particularly because it gives a broad range of knowledge and visual information to children across this vast, absolutely huge country. Now, in this film, we saw the journey of art up to a point. We saw that from the small shrines and deeply personalized art of the early period, we came to a point where kings had just begun to patronize the making of temples, and the changes which began to happen in the name of the temple itself, for instance, with this. We also saw the beginnings with meditation in front of the stupas and lingas, where we forgot all the forms of the world to meditate upon that which is beyond form itself. From there, we saw the coming of deities, who are the personifications of so many qualities. We saw the artist making them with great beauty and grace, so that we would respond from within ourselves to that beauty and catch a glimpse of the grace which underlies all that there is, creating great peace and harmony within us, helping to prepare us for the journey towards the final understanding. So it's a long and very beautiful journey, but marvelously interconnected. And the philosophy and the art are so intertwined that you cannot for a moment separate them. And the people are so deeply involved. It is it is not noblemen and kings and professors who are indulging in all this. It is the people themselves, the vast range of people. As a matter of fact, as all of you would be aware, till the other day, philosophy was so much a heritage of the Indian people, the common people, that a so-called common gardener or a domestic help could be found discussing with you the illusory nature of the material world. Such a profound philosophic concept, which everybody knew so well. And such has been this marvelous culture which is seen represented in this art made for the people, by the people. And I would be very happy to answer your questions and would request you to please put them in the chat box. And I will request Sujata to please read them out. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Before that, I'd like to take this opportunity to announce the next film, which would be on Saturday, 22nd November. And the next film is, of course, this is part one. That means there has to be a part two. It's 5,000 Years of Sculpture, part two, about art in the medieval period. So that's Saturday, 22nd November. Kindly mark it in your calendar, and we'd love so much for you to be there with us. Shakuntala saying, why was it that Buddha was not depicted in human form?
Yes, Shakuntala. In the early period, we must first of all go back to the fact that personalities were considered unimportant. As a matter of fact, the whole purpose of the philosophic quest and the art which supported this philosophic quest was to make us lose our egos, to lose our belief in personalities. People just come and go, they are ephemeral. So the focus is always on the eternal themes, which will be represented through the art. So there was no distraction of showing the human form. Beyond a point, the human form began to be shown, but again it was the idealized human form. It was not particular personalities. There were no portraits of kings, for instance, right up to the 7th, 8th century, where for the first time at Mamalapuram you have the depiction of the portrait of a king. So that is the gradual changes which take place in the development of this art. And yes, that is why initially there is no human form depiction of the Buddha. And of course, you must remember that in fact, the Buddha is not correct. It is Gautama Siddhartha gained enlightenment to become a Buddha. He's worshipped by Buddhists as one out of four human Buddhas or Buddhas in human form, or one out of seven, or one out of 100. And it is really the enlightenment, the potential for enlightenment within us, which is what we must achieve. And in order to finally become a Buddha oneself, it is during the colonial period that the focus went more upon an individual Buddha, and the whole focus went on Gautama Siddhartha only. Though the fact is that if you look at, for instance, if you look at the grand Shwedagon Pagoda of Myanmar, it is dedicated to seven uh, previous Buddhas and Gautama Siddhartha. If you look at the sculptures which survive, for instance, from the Gandhara region, you would find so many of them are the Kashyapa Buddha or other Buddhas. And it is interesting to note that these details are sometimes strangely ignored by scholars, even though they are available in the inscriptions, because they are so immersed in their own beliefs that there was the Buddha. So the focus is entirely gone on the heroic personality of the Buddha, who was the founder of a religion. Actually, it was not so. Gautama Siddhartha is a Buddha, and that is the beauty of it all. Thank you.
Niluva Roy Chaudhary, Benoy, another wonderful presentation. Thank you. Truly enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nilova. It's very kind of you to express that. Thank you.
John Palka, Benoyji, this sculptured art is magnificent. It is also huge. How did sculptors get trained and how did they work together to produce visually united sculptures on such a large scale?
Yes, John. It is quite an amazing thing. But these were guilds of artists who passed on the knowledge from generation to generation and preserved that beautiful knowledge. And most of all, preserved the attitude, the meditative quality of concentration upon the art and the making of the art and the respect which they gave to the art. So, in fact, it was society as a whole who patronized the guilds of artists and patronized the art, and it was the artist who fulfilled his own dharma by continuing the knowledge passed on to him by his ancestors. And there's a spread of this vast knowledge right across the subcontinent and eventually to so many of the countries of Asia. And in today's world, which we consider sometimes to be so modern and so deep, so interconnected, we find it difficult to appreciate that here is evidence of the fact that knowledge was perhaps even better shared in ancient times than is shared today. Perhaps today the attitudes are so ephemeral, so commercial that we do not give that much importance and that much respect, and do not share knowledge with that much generosity. But the product is the hundreds of thousands of works of art, as you say, so much art, and that's what brings before us a whole attitude which is absolutely marvelous. Thank you, John.
Shehbani Azam, this film might have been made quite some time back. Are there any recent discoveries that you would have liked to include?
Thank you for this question. I really don't think so. I've not come across recent discoveries which fundamentally affect the essence of the meaning here. There's nothing so significant. And if you do see these about almost 150 films, they do cover a vast range of art and culture as it evolved. So, uh, no, I think there is no significant, there are no significant finds that lead to a change in what is shown in these films. Thank you very much.
Siddharth Kashyap, sir, thank you for your show. I've always felt deeply drawn to spiritual imagery, looking up at the stars, reflecting on the serene figures of the Buddha or Hindu deities. I sense something vast and eternal beyond myself. Yet, I also realize we live in a modern world shaped by science, technology, logic, and evidence. My question is, how can one develop a true spirituality, one that is rooted in reality, informed by science, and yet open to wisdom beyond mere feeling, so that we live with insight, meaning, and grounded awareness in today's world?
Excellent, an excellent question. I must say, thank you very much. Yes, the Indian philosophy there is of so much value, as the Dalai Lama says all the time, uh, and quotes the Buddha. The Buddha always said that my followers, do not just believe what I say. Use your own mind, your own reasoning to see, to understand. Go by your understanding. And that is the most wonderful thing about all of Indian philosophy. It does not at any point say that this is it and you must believe this. It is not ritualistic in that sense. In fact, all the so called rituals are there to create puja, for instance, the adoration. Puja is not prayer, as the West has also come to realize now that it was a misinterpretation of the word puja as prayer earlier. Puja is adoration of the deity. So even puja, the adoration, is there for us to be moved by the grace. There is the creation of a peace and harmony which comes from the stillness of too many desires, the confusion of too many desires. All this takes us away from the crass materialism which keeps us caught in things which are absolutely not lasting at all and gives us the opportunity to think beyond. So, yes, as a matter of fact, the development of logic happened at a very, very early age in this subcontinent. And by the beginning of the first millennium, you see it being expressed in very clear terms at institutions like the Nalanda University, where logic, epistemology, uh, all this is spelled out so well. And everything is looked at from the intellectual point of view, as well as the other point of view, which is the that of uh, experiential knowledge, which is that, for instance, when you look upon something beautiful and it moves you, it is believed and it is seen. You when you see a beautiful sunrise or a beautiful work of art, you see for yourself that you are moved, and that is something which is akin to a realization of what is beyond the immediate material concerns. So it is all extremely scientific, and that is a wonder of it all. So the important thing is to break away from any idea that this is a matter of ritualistic feeling. No, it's not. Hindu philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, Jain philosophy is extremely logical and gives you the opportunity to use your mind, use your heart, use all that you have in terms of understanding to be able to understand the world around you, to be able to understand yourself, and most importantly, to be able to lose the confusions which are created in the material world around you. Thank you so much.
Niluva Roy Chaudhary, the depth of thought of this concept behind the sculptures is so sublime. One truly feels elevated in mind.
Yes, Nilova, it is this elevation of the mind which we were talking about. It is it is seeking so much the best within ourselves. It is uh, it is leaving behind the crassness with which we remain so occupied. We cannot help being occupied, leaving behind our desires to be elevated, as you say, to the uh, to the best within us. Thank you.
R.D. Kimestra, thanks. Looking forward to join part 2.
It'll be such a pleasure to have you with us, and this will take you into the coming of later temples and so much development which took place. Thank you.
Krishna Burli, message of human excellence through artistic expressions, from I and mine to essence of humanity, that same thing in different forms, oneness with differences of individuality, building the reality of oneself, looking inwards without attachment to excel by improving knowledge and skills bestowed. What a blissful art cut in a mountain stone. We lose ourselves when we look in detail and get timelessness in the beauty of expression.
So beautifully put, Krishna, as always. Such a pleasure to share with you. Thank you.
Ottavio Forte, I hope I've pronounced that right. If I haven't, apologies. I look forward to part 2 on November 22nd.
I look forward very much to having you with us. Thank you.
Shakuntala. In Roman art, there are so many statues of emperors, but Indian civilization did not depict kings. That shows we went beyond individuals. Please elaborate.
Yes, in fact, one of the most marvelous things about the art of ancient India, in fact, the whole culture of ancient India, is that we did go beyond ephemeral personalities. In fact, in the 3rd century BCE, even when a king was putting his inscriptions on or his edicts upon monuments, he would never write his own name because the name was so unimportant. He would write Devanampiya Piyadasi, one who's beloved of the divine and one whose vision is filled with adoration. A vision which was followed at that time by the king in Sri Lanka, following the Indian tradition. He called himself Devanampiya Piyatissa. And in fact, to the north of India, in the language of Aramaic, in which Jesus Christ would come and speak 3 centuries later, the same was being done by a king. So this marvelous thing about not making images of personalities, not having portraits, is the most wondrous part of the ancient art of India. For well more than 1,500 years, you have this great tradition where thousands and thousands of works of art are created. Common people are made, uh, animals are made, flowers are made, trees are made, and yet epic themes are made. But there is no depiction of ephemeral personalities. There are no portraits. Thank you.
Vinod Kumar, great seeing you almost after 30 years. It is a delight. Can you say a few words about Chinese Buddha temples or architecture?
Well, a pleasure to be interacting with you after so long. Yes, China was deeply influenced by the Indic traditions since early times. China's own philosophy, which is also very profound and deep, is more related to living in the world as it is, more related to the functioning of society, more related to hierarchies, more related to civic behavior and very practical and very fine philosophy that way. What Indian culture and Indic philosophy brought to China was the search for that which is beyond what is around us in the world. And in fact, the way that the name of Kumara Jiva of Indian origin, who was living in Kucha in the 4th century, the way that he continues to be venerated till today in China goes to show you the depth with which the Chinese people responded to the poetry of life as expressed by Sanskrit manuscripts and expressed by Buddhism. So Chinese, the Chinese followed Indian art and architecture. The tradition of making Buddhist caves was was carried out in very large numbers of excavations right across China. The art inside, for instance, the Kizil caves, which are among the earliest such caves in China, is is very closely related to Indian art. As a matter of fact, you have depictions of Shiva and Parvati also in the Buddhist caves. Or in the later period, for instance, the vast numbers of caves at Dunhuang show constant drawing upon uh, the then traditions in India over the centuries, and you find the Brahada Buddhas, the large Buddha figures that began to be made in India, became very popular across Central Asia and China. So there is much sharing of these great traditions. Thank you.
Pakhi, could you please shed light on the major points of convergence and divergence between Jain and Buddhist art with a focus on their underlying symbolism and iconographic traditions? Thank you.
First of all, we must appreciate that the traditions of art in the ancient period in the Indian subcontinent are very deeply uh, interconnected. As a matter of fact, it was the same artists who used to make the art of the Buddhist monuments and the Jaina monuments and the Hindu monuments. So there is more similarity really than there is divergence. As a matter of fact, what somehow the colonial historians did not make so well known, but what is a very important fact is that there were probably as many Jaina stupas in India as there were Buddhist stupas. And today also you could visit the Archaeological Museum at Mathura and the Government Museum at Lucknow to see the remains from the Jaina stupas. And you find that they have railings around them also, much exactly the same way as the Buddhist stupas did. And the depictions on the railings, the gateways, etc., are all exactly the same as in the Buddhist stupas. As a matter of fact, the earliest known depictions of the first formalized deities, uh, Lakshmi, Gaja Lakshmi, and Saraswati, are also found uh, both in Jaina stupa railings and Buddhist stupa railings in the second century BCE. And in fact, it is later that you find them represented in Hindu monuments. So, whether it is the chakras, the symbols of cosmic order, and so much else which you find is shared between all the Indic faiths, there is a great deal of similarity. And of course, the greatest similarity of all is that all these faiths have this understanding that the world that you see around you is seen, which is perceived owing to the limitations of your senses and your sensibilities. Therefore, it is illusory. All this is uh, not going to last. So, what you have to look for beyond this Maya or Mithya is that which is lasting. So, it is the search for the truth beyond the Maya or Mithya, the illusion of the material world, which is the constant and most important thing that there is in all these faiths. You would, of course, also notice from all the inscriptions that survive from ancient India that every family that we know about from ancient India had in it someone who was worshipping a Hindu deity, somebody who was worshipping a Buddhist deity, or somebody worshipping a Jaina deity. So really it is all so contiguous. So it is really the similarities which are most striking of all rather than the differences. And some differences also come up later in as much as the uh, Mayan tradition of Buddhism in later times comes forward with the concept of bodhisattvas who you can pray to and seek their help. Now, the Jainas did not formulate such a concept. The Jain Tirthankars are beyond it all. You cannot pray to them for their help. So, just like in early Buddhism, the Jains continue to uh, seek their salvation through their own discipline and their own meditation and their own leaving behind the concerns of the material world and moving beyond it through one's own efforts. So, the only significant change is between the Mahayana Buddhists and the Jainas. Otherwise, there is much similarity, and the Jainas do continue a very rigorous, very logical, very fine path of intellectual activity. Thank you.
Janetta, please expound once more on Gautama Siddhartha as a Buddha and not the Buddha.
Yes, you see, uh, as I mentioned before, there are in Buddhism there are a number of Buddhas. At the caves of Ajanta, for instance, there is a depiction of 7 Manushi Buddhas. Buddhas who lived in the world. And as I mentioned, there are major temples and stupas which are dedicated to and are supposed to enshrine the relics. For instance, the Shwedagon Pagoda is supposed to enshrine the relics of the past seven Buddhas. So the important thing is that uh, when a person is able to leave behind all his attachments to the material world and gain enlightenment, he would hope to become a Buddha. And that is the example before us. And in the early art, when Buddha began to be depicted in human form, it was not as a particular individual, but as an idealized form with 32 attributes which identified him as an enlightened one. So it is this, and I think this is very important to understand because it underlines the truth behind the philosophy. It underlines the fact that we look upon these great examples of enlightenment to awaken that which is within us. It is all about what is within us. It is the spirit within us. It is the potential for enlightenment and knowledge within us, and that is where the focus is. It is not. It is not uh, the great founder of a faith who will lead us from will lead us into the light, but we can be guided through observing the example also, but we have to do it ourselves. Thank you.
Tara, Kumarajiva was half Indian and half Kuchian.
Yes, Nara, exactly. It was his father Kumarayana who was from Kashmir, and the mother, Princess Jiva, took him to Kashmir where he spent 13 years learning about Sanskrit scriptures and Buddhism. And such are the examples that survive and we know about till today because of Chinese records and because we did not believe so much in keeping records of ephemeral personalities in India. Thank you.
Ottavio Forte, I was invited to the movie screening by your friends Rajesh and Deepa Malhotra. They visited me in Belmont, USA about a month ago. I'm glad they did because I know nothing about Indian art and culture. Your lecture opened a big window in a world I know so little about. Thank you so much, Professor Benoy.
I'm so happy that you responded to this, that you enjoyed this, and it is such a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to be with all of you, and once again, my many thanks to India Habitat Center and to Sunil for this excellent screening. Thank you so much.